Welcome back, everyone. This is part 4 of What If Kid Asta Meets Noelle's Mother. I do not own Black Clover or any of the characters in this video. Chapter 7. The next morning, Asir got up early to make breakfast for herself, Fana, and Mars, despite the maids and servants being at the house and doing their daily work duties. She told a maid to watch the pans while she went to go wake up Fana and Mars, who compiled. Asir reached the room next to Solids and knocked 3 times. Asir heard a come in from the inside, which she then opened the door to see Fana and Mars sitting on the bed. They were fully dressed, but not in their Diamond Kingdom clothes. No, instead they were wearing casual clothes. In Mars's case, a light blue t-shirt and navy blue pants, along with sneakers. For Fana, a pink t-shirt, yellow pants, and sneakers as well. The both of them just finished tying them before they looked up at the matriarch of the House of Silva, "Oh Lady Asir." Fana curtsied. Asir laughed at the gesture. "Thank you, Fana, but you don't need to be so polite," Asir told the pinkette. Fana felt her cheeks turn red. Sorry," Fana apologized. "I'm just so used to it, 'cause you know, former diamond mage and all." "I understand," Asir nodded. "It's just a force of habit." She paused, then added, "Come on, I've made us all breakfast." "All right," Fana nodded as she stood up from the bed. Mars did the same and the two followed Asir downstairs and into the kitchen. Aside from the maids, it was just the 3 up. Just as Fana and Mars sat down, Asir came over to the kitchen table with 3 plates and set each one at hers, Mars, and Fana's table places before she eventually sat down and began to eat. After a minute or two, Asir set her fork down and frowned sympathetically at Fana and Mars. "Nervous?" she asked the two. Fana and Mars flinched, then nodded. "Yeah," they both replied. "Understandable." Asir nodded. She mentally noted to write a note for Noelle to give out missions to any of the squad members while she was gone. "However, I do not want you to go to this meeting on an empty stomach. It is not healthy, especially considering how much stress and pressure you two are going to be under within a couple hours." "Right," Fana spoke softly. "Well, we better eat," Mars told Fana. Fana turned to Mars and nodded in agreement. After the 3 finished eating breakfast, the 3 left the house. After Asir left a note for Noelle on the kitchen table whenever he woke up explaining that he was to be captain for the day, and if anything should happen at the house to let her know as soon as possible. Asir led Mars and Fana into the royal capital. The 3 chatted about the Clover royal capital's size compared to the Diamond Kingdoms, among a few other topics. For example, what spells they each had, etc. As they reached the meeting building, Asir stopped and turned to face them. "As you two are probably aware, the other Magic Knight squad captains may or may not approve of you to being here," Asir told them. "But know that even if the citizens of Clover do not accept you, I accept you. So if you two need anything, please don't hesitate to come to House Silva." Fana and Mars opened their mouths in shock or surprise at how kind the matriarch of House Silva was. Mars began, only to be interrupted by Fana hugging Asir. "Really appreciate your kindness and hospitality," Fana finished for Mars. Asir smiled and hugged the pinkette back. "I'm glad," Asir replied before letting Fana go. "But you should really thank Noelle and Asta. It was them that convinced Solid and Courtney to allow it." She laughs. "Because they know what I'd do if I was on that dungeon mission." She turned around to face the double doors of the building. "Kindness really does go a long way." She then opened the doors to see the other 8 Magic Knight captains in the room, as well as Julius and Marks. 3 of the captains, Jack of the Green Mantis Squad, Yami Sukahiro of the Black Bulls, and Fugolian Vermilion of the Crimson Lions, were talking or arguing. Well, Moreso, Yami, and Jack. Fugolian was trying to get them to stop, but to no avail. Dorothy of the Coral Peacocks just continued to sleep. Rill of the Aqua Azure Deer was trying to help Fugolian with getting Jack and Yami to stop, but it wasn't helping. Gilder of the Purple Orcus remained quiet, as did William of the Golden Dawn. Charlotte of the Blue Rose Knights just sighed at Jack and Yami's arguing. "Honestly, men," Charlotte groaned. "I've brought Fana and Mars like you requested, sir." Asir spoke up as she went to her seat. Fana and Mars on either of her. The other captains minus Dorothy stopped talking and turned to Asir, Fana, and Mars, then to the Wizard King. "Wonderful." Julius spoke as he stood up. "Now that Fana and Mars are here, we can discuss what to do with them. I say we throw them into the dungeons." Gilder spoke. "They are from an enemy kingdom after all." "Kek kek. I'd rather have fun fighting them first," Jack remarked. "Humph. If Asir believes they deserve a chance, Then I say we give it to them. Yami replied nonchalantly. I agree. Fugolian nodded. Even if they are from Diamond, they have done no harm to us. But how do we know that they are trustworthy? Real wondered. That's why this meeting is taking place. Julius spoke. If these two are truly serious about defecting from Diamond, then they should tell us what is going on Diamond. Specifically, the 8 shining generals. Fana and Mars visibly flinched at the mention of the 8 shining generals. Julius took notice of their hesitation and smiled lightly. Take your time. Fana and Mars looked at each other as if silently talking to each other. The other 8 magic knight captains waited for Fana and Mars to reveal some information. Or in Dorothy's case, just sleep. Eventually, Fana and Mars turned to face Julius. Well, we do know some information. Fana began, but it may or may not be that helpful. Mars added, I'll be the judge of that. Julius reassured them all right. Fana took a breath, then continued. Before we were initiated to become shining generals of Diamond, there were 2 before us. I'm sure you're familiar with Evanora Chandler and Anna Dreyfus, right? At the mention of those 2 names, Dorothy instantly awoke and felt shivers go down her spine. Jack and Yami, on the other hand, had intrigued expressions on their faces. Ah yes, I remember Anna. Jack grinned. She was quite fun to fight. Anyone is fun to fight for you. Charlotte's sweat dropped. Evanora. Dorothy shivered. Oh, looks who's awake. Yami chuckled. What? Don't like the name Evanora? It's not just that. Dorothy spoke. It's her magic attribute that terrifies me. At the mention of magic attributes, Julius's eyes became all starry, much to Marx's irritation. Here we go again, Marx groaned. What magic attributes though to have? Tell me please, Plazel. Julius begged so ecstatically that he sounded like a child, begging for a cookie. Sir, Marx snapped. But it was too late. Julius had already leapt over the table to reach Mars and Fana. It must be so cool. Julius continued to gush. Evanora uses acid magic and Anna uses breaker magic. Fana spoke softly in response to Julius's enthusiasm. Yami and Jack glanced at each other before grinning. Now I remember her. Yami spoke as he took his cigar out of his mouth. She went all batshit crazy after I severely injured Lotus, who apparently is married to that witch. She got so angry that she nearly deteriorated my right arm off. He chuckled. Man, Owen was not too thrilled, but he patched me up regardless. Yes, Mars nodded. And knowing the Diamond King, he will want 3 of the 8 shining generals to attack Kiten, the bordering town between Clover and Diamond. I say the best course of action is to get a magic knight squad down there to defend it from the oncoming attack. Do you to know when? Charlotte asked. Fana glanced at Charlotte and shook her head. No, Fana replied, but you'll know it when you see it. I'll go with my squad. Gilder spoke up. If that's all right with you, sir. Julius nodded in approval. I agree. Now then, before Julius could finish, they all heard an explosion outside, as well as terrified screaming from the citizens. What was that? Real questioned. An attack on the royal capital? Fugolian gasped. But how? That should be impossible. Fugolian thought. If that's the case, we should head out there and safeguard the people. Asir commanded. Fana and Mars, you're with me. Yes, ma'am. Both Fana and Mars complied. It's best that we split up. Fugolian remarked. It'll allow us to cover more ground that way. Right. Dorothy agreed as she strutted out of the room, following the other captains out of the meeting room, leaving Marx and Julius behind. In the Diamond Kingdom's conference room, 8 figures stood around a massive table like map of the world. Near the front of the table was a gray-haired man with yellow eyes and wearing the military Diamond Kingdom uniform, in addition to a black fur coat. To his right stood a dark purple-eyed, short brown-haired, and wearing a witch's hat, and a long-sleeved red dress, in addition to the same black fur coat. And to the first figure's left stood a brown-skinned, curvaceous, red-eyed, and medium-length black hair, as well as wearing lady gloves and regal red dress, and a black fur coat. So what's the plan, Ragoose? The red-eyed woman asked. The gray-haired man, Ragoose, turned to the red-eyed woman. According to our world map here, it seems an attack is being launched on the royal capital of Clover, Anna, Ragoose replied. The red-eyed woman. Anna smiled. It is a shame though. The witch to Ragus's right replied. Fana and Mars defecting from Diamond, since they defected, that means I won't get in trouble if I kill them. Another red-eyed and blonde-haired male retorted. Isn't that right? A tall young man with a lean muscular figure, dark skin, and well-defined muscle tone. He has short, black hair with a crew-cut hairstyle. He has a pair of black eyes along with red irises and has trimmed eyebrows. Glanced over at the blonde and put a hand to his chin. Honestly, I wonder why they defected in the first place. Ladros Evanora, he remarked. The witch general Evanora glanced at him. Maybe because of what Morris has been doing. Andreas? Evanora replied. Andreas shrugged, then glanced over to the other side of the table, where a tall young man taller than Mars but shorter than Ladros and Andreas with an obese figure, fluffy hair, pale skin, along with having a pair of brown eyes who unfortunately was eating in the middle of the meeting. Tantalus. Andreas spoke towards the fat young adult. Unfortunately, he did not answer, causing the other 7 shining generals including Bracos, the burly man with an afro that connected to his beard and eyebrows and had yellow gems in his forehead, to sweat drop. Tantalus. Ragu snapped. Focus on the meeting for good's sake. Tantalus stopped eating and looked up at the other shining generals. What? He asked. I'm just eating. As for Fana and Mars defecting, I could care less. But if His Majesty orders us to kill the defectors, then I will. Ragus nodded, while Ladros pouted complained. Aw, come on Ragus. Ladros pouted. It is legal to kill them now. Shouldn't we take advantage of that? No, Ragus replied. Mwa, so when do we leave? The old man on the other side of the table questioned. Now is the perfect time to strike, Ragus retorted. Yagos, Bracos, you're with me. The old man, Yagos, and Bracos, grinned in satisfaction. All right, Bracos smiled. That'll be fun. Yagos agreed. Time to prepare the armies. Ragus, Bracos, and Yagos then walked out of the door before the other 5 shining generals could say anything. Within the Clover Kingdom's royal capital, several citizens were screaming in terror and running away from what appeared to be zombies. Fires ablaze throughout. On top of that, several black-cloaked figures, dark disciples, mingled with the zombie-like creatures and fired magical bullets on the fleeing citizens, killing any that they managed to hit. Ha ha ha, a dark disciple laughed. That's right, you weaklings. Run. Ha 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 ha. The citizens continued to scream and run, but they stopped upon seeing the captains appearing. In each of the locations throughout, the magic knight captains, the alive citizens cheered. Some of the other magic knights like Mimosa, Klaus, Nozel, Nibra, and Solid, from Golden Dawn and Silver Eagles respectively appeared to aid in the battle. Figured Mother would need help, Nozel replied. Now let's stop this invasion now. Right, Nibra and Solid replied as they began to attack the dark disciples and the zombies. While their attacks took out the zombies no problem, the dark disciples were another story. What? Klaus gasped. We can take out the zombies just fine, but these guys, they have evil mana. Be careful. Right, sir? Mimosa replied. I'll heal any of the injured. Why bother? A dark disciple mocked Klaus. With our devil power ranging from 1035, there's no way some magic knights like yourselves can overcome us. Won't know until we try. Klaus shot back. Right? Added. Wind magic. Crescent moon sickle. He unleashed several crescent moon wind slashes at the dark disciples. Unfortunately, all it did was knock them back. Another dark disciple began to mock Please, is that all you got? She smirked. Here, hun. Let me show you how a real mage handles magic. Go ahead and try. Retorted nonchalantly as he unleashed more of his magic on the zombies and the dark disciples. Within the northern district of the royal capital, a bunch of zombies approached a little girl that curled herself up into a ball in order to defend herself. Tears falling from her eyes as Raid stared at her with a dark smile. You Clover citizens will all die as part of my revenge for tarnishing me. Raid snarled. Starting with you first. The little girl cried out as the zombies continued towards her. Someone, anyone, help me. The little girl screamed. Raids just laughed at her. Please. No one is coming to save you, little girl. So just accept death and become one of my playthings. Raids sneered. Just as the zombies were about to grab her, a whirlwind of flames burned them to ash. Flame magic. Phoenix whirlwind. Raids opened his mouth, but didn't say anything. The little girl opened her eyes slowly and gaped upon seeing a pink-haired girl with light blue eyes, and her grimoire out and glowing a crimson color. A magic knight. The little girl beamed. Huh? Raids wondered aloud before turning slightly so he could see who the little girl was talking about. And who the hell are you? Fana stood where she was, an expression filled with anger, but not at the little girl, but at Raids. I won't someone like you hurt whoever you want, whenever you want. Fana retorted. The wind of the flames made her clothes and hair wave. Chapter 8. Look at them, running away. Brachos chuckled as he, Iagos, Ragus, and their armies began to storm Kiten. Even some of the magic knights here are fleeing, Ragus noted. Don't bother with the fleeing people. All we need to do is secure Kiten for Diamond. Huh. That'll be simple, Iagos chuckled, with the other magic knights preoccupied with the attack on the royal capital of Clover. This'll be easy. Are you sure about that? A deep voice remarked. Ragus turned to see a gigantic armored knight in front of them. What the? Brachos gasped. The magic knights turned to look at who arrived. Gilder watched from the side, intrigued. Whoever that is, help is appreciated. Gilder thought, I took this assignment to not get caught. Looks like Lady Luck is on my side after all. Who are you? Iagos questioned. It doesn't matter, Ragus retorted. Men attack. All three of their armies charged forwards into Kiten and began to destroy the buildings. I don't know who this giant is, but if it's going to defend Kiten, then I'll take it down. Brachos grinned. Red clay magic. Red ochre armor. Brachos then began to grow in size so he was equal to the height of the giant armored figure. No, you fool. Ragus groaned. Oh well, Iagos. Keep the magic knights busy. Right. Iagos grinned as he shot his mucus magic towards citizens and the magic knights. Gilder scowled in frustration. This will not do. Gilder groaned. Alright then, I'll use my invisible seeker and invisible traveling companion spells in tandem with one another to aid my squad. Upon saying the dispel's names, he and the rest of his purple orcus became invisible. Sir? One of the purple orcus asked Gildray. By letting that giant armored man handle this, I'll swoop in the aftermath and take all the credit. Gilder thought to himself. Brachos and the giant armored figure began to clash with their fists, causing massive shockwaves throughout Kiten and bit beyond in all directions. As the two continued to punch each other, Gilder sent out his invisible knight spell to attack the diamond shining general armies. That'll keep them busy. Gilder thought to himself as he watched the diamond soldiers cry out in shock as they began to be slashed down one by one. Ragus was the first to notice this and turned his attention to Iagos. Iagos, Ragus called out to his fellow shining general. Our men idiot. Ragus muttered. There's shadows on the ground. Aim for those. Right. Iagos does so, thus shattering the invisible knights. Oh, so that's what those were. Huh. Now I know where those magic knights are hiding. Crap. Gilder, plus all of the purple orca squad thought simultaneously. Iagos unleashed several mucus magic attacks at the shadows, entrapping the purple orcus, thus revealing them one by one. While Iagos did that, Ragus turned his attention back to the giant armored figure that Brachos was fighting. His eyes widened slightly upon seeing a bluish gem in the center. Brachos, aim for the gem, Ragus told him. What? I can't hear you over the noise. Brachos shouted back as he blocked another punch from the giant armored figure. Ugh, fine, guess I'll do it myself. Ragus muttered as he prepared his lightning arrows, then fired all of them at the blue gem in the center of the giant's armor. However, earth creation magic, gauntlet of the giant god. Two giant stone hands appeared in front of the giant armored figure and began to pummel Brachos repeatedly, as well as bouncing some of the lightning arrows away from the giant's armor. Ragus and Brachos gaped in shock. What the hell? Brachos gritted his teeth as he regained his composure. Who did that? That was me. An older toned curvaceous woman with long blonde hair with blue streaks that is sometimes braided and brown eyes, although she wore an eye patch that covered the right side of her face due to missing her right eye, now having only scar tissue covering the socket, and wears a black shirt over a white button-down blouse, a knee-length skirt with a belt and slit dress and black sandals. On her left is a pouch for her heart grimoire, which was now open and in front of her as she stepped forward from what appeared to be a house. I heard commotion outside, so I decided to check it out. She looked up at the giant armored figure. More importantly, to see if my friend was okay. She narrowed her eyes slightly. And to protect Kiten from invaders like you three. I'm okay, Valeria, the giant replied. And you're right, let's kick their asses. Valeria glanced up at the giant and nodded. Right, she replied. So, are you three prepared to leave? Ragus, Iagos, and Brachos glanced at each other before laughing. Not happening. The three retorted. Fire on the giant, Ragus ordered as he launched more lightning arrows, while Brachos charged towards the giant and rammed his fist into the chest plate of the giant armored figure. The punch was ferocious enough to make the giant skid backwards and through a few buildings. Gilder released his invisible seeker and traveling companion spells at this point. mostly because he knew at this point that the enemies could now see them. Guess they don't need much help. Gilder thought to himself, no matter. Once those to capture the 3 shining generals for me, I'll swoop in and take all the credit. Ha ha ha. While Raguz flew after the giant on his lightning-created bird, Bracos turned his attention to Valeria. Raguz took my initial target. Bracos groaned before grinning. But you'll do. He took notice of the eye patch and chuckled. Oh ho, look at you. You must have been in a really tough battle to have lost an eye. You could say that, Valeria retorted. No matter. I'll beat you in one fell swoop. Bracos retorted as he thrusted his right hand forward and towards Valeria, but his right fist never connected. Instead, he was trapped by the 2 stone hands Valeria created earlier. What? Earth magic. Embrace of the giant god, Valeria revealed. With this spell, you're now trapped. Damn it all. Bracos growled as he tried to break free via his brute strength. Let me lend you a hand, Bracos. Yagos came towards Valeria and Bracos and used his mucus magic to free Bracos. Valeria looked up and took notice of several purple orcas trapped within Yagos' mucus. If I attack him, I'll only hurt the magic knights trapped inside, Valeria thought. With the giant armored figure and Raguz, who were now fighting elsewhere within Kiten, Raguz continued to shoot lightning and lightning arrows at the armor's weak point. If I manage to destroy the armor, I'll find out who's inside. Raguz thought, if there's a mage in that armor, use your magic. Raguz shouted as he unleashed more lightning arrows on the giant armored figure, who simply swatted them away and aimed to punch Raguz off his lightning bird, who evaded the punch. Raguz then fired more lightning arrows while avoiding the punches. You want to see my magic? The giant armored figure replied with a deep voice. Then here, I'll show you. Golden eye magic. Heat ray. The eye sockets of the suit of armor glowed a gold color. What the? Raguz began, only to be hit by 2 golden energy beams that made him go flying. The giant armored figure charged after the flying backwards Raguz, with Valeria. She was staring at the mucus diamond mage, Yagos, who had several citizens and purple orcus inside of it. What do I do? Valeria thought. Mwa. Just give up already, Yagos laughed. With all these people captive by magic, you won't be able to lay a finger on me. He's almost right, Valeria thought. So, I have to use that method in order to defeat this guy and save the citizens and magic knights. Huh? Valeria waved her 2 arms around as earthly runes appeared around her 2 arms' wrists, making Yagos confused, as well as Gilder. What is she doing? Gilder and Yagos both thought. True earth magic. Giga Crush. Valeria revealed. At once, the ground underneath Yagos imploded, thus shattering his mucus and freeing everyone he had captive prior, as well as launch large chunks of debris into the air. The citizens and magic knight that were freed. What? But how? Yagos gasped. The natural mana in this world guides me, Valeria retorted. True earth magic. Giga Fall. Before Yagos could react, all the debris that was shot up into the air from Giga Crush slammed down into Yagos, thus creating a massive explosion and a crater in the ground. Yagos, now knocked out cold. Unfortunately, the shockwave from the attack freed Bracos. Bracos grinned in satisfaction that he was freed. Ha, such a foolish woman, Bracos retorted. Due to your own spell you just did now on Yagos, I'm free. Are you sure? Valeria remarked. Huh? Bracos wondered aloud. Earth-binding magic, binding lock, Valeria declared. Suddenly, several earthly hands rose out of the ground and wrapped around Bracos. Gah, can't move. Bracos grunted. Valeria dusted her hands off, satisfied with her work. There, now to find my friend, Valeria noted as she walked off in the direction Raguz had gone flying. Gilder watched in amazement from the sidelines. Incredible, he thought, defeating 2 shining generals like it was nothing. Perhaps I should give some hospitality towards her and her friend as thanks after this is over. Back with Raguz, he grunted in irritation as the giant who kept pummeling with its fists towards him. While he wasn't as aggressive as he was earlier, he was more so in thought. Golden eye magic, why do I feel that that's familiar? Raguz thought as he evaded another punch attack followed up by a golden eye magic heat ray attack. Then it dawned on him and his lips curved into a smile. Ah yes, now I remember. You were one of Fanzel Kruger's students. Raguz smirked before frowning. But why leave Diamond and live in Kiten? At first, the giant armored figure didn't respond. But then, that's something you don't need to wrap your pretty little head around too much. The deep voice of the giant figure retorted coolly. Humph. It will concern me once I shatter that armor, Ragu's retorted, firing more lightning arrows at the armor's weak point. This time, the giant armored figure could not stop them in time, and they all connected. The armor began to crack after taking too many hits, and it shattered, thus revealing who was inside of it the whole time. Ragu's gasped upon seeing who it was. An amber-eyed young curvaceous woman with bun-styled brown-yellow hair. She wears a long, elegant dress, and a white short hood over her shoulders, as well as glasses. The woman landed on the ground, grimoire open. "Your Ragu's," began, a shocked expression on his face. "I'm Alice Brosnan," the woman retorted, who pointed her right index finger at Ragu's. "And you, Shining General, are invading my home of the city of Kiten, Alice Brosnan," Ragu's repeated while muttered. "Oh yes, you are one of Fanzel Kruger's students." But after he told his students of his defect, most of them followed. "Seems Mars, Fana, and you did just that." Alice and Ragu's turned to see a crystal color-haired male coming towards them. "Ah, so there's Mars. Shame it's on opposite sides of the battlefield though. Master taught us to use our magic to defend the people," Mars retorted. "And I'll do just that." His grimoire opened up and floated in front of him, turning to a specific page before it glowed. Crystal creation magic, Levadian. Mars thought as the large crystal sword formed above him. Alice watched as Mars commanded the sword to strike Ragu's, who evaded. "I see your magic is strong as ever," Ragu's noted. "However, you cannot defeat me, Mars. Who said I'd be the one to do it?" Mars grinned, making Ragis's facial expression become confused. "The mana did lead me here, which I do not understand, but I think I do now." He glanced at Alice, then back at Ragu's. "It's to protect my friends." "Friend?" Alice repeated before she chuckled. "Well, since we were both taught by Fanzel, I suppose that counts. We had nothing against each other as children, so why would we start now?" She glanced at Mars. "Speaking of, where's Fana?" Mars was about to respond, but the two had to evade some lightning arrows fired by Ragu's. "If you have time to chat, then you have time to fight," Ragu's retorted. "Mars, go find Fana," Alice told him. "I can handle Ragu's on my own. I won't leave anyone behind." Mars shot back. "I got this." Alice reassured the defected Diamond Kingdom mage as she turned to face Ragu's, and her eyes glowed gold again. Golden eye, binding magic, overpower glare. Just as Ragu's unleashed another barrage of lightning arrows, which Mars used his crystal sword to block, Ragis's body began, frozen by Alice's binding spell. "Damn it, I can't move," Ragu's thought angrily. "No doubt our remaining men already retreated, despite our motto of never retreating. But I guess you have to learn that the hard way." Just as Alice's spell concluded, Valeria reached her and Mars. Valeria sighed in relief upon realizing Mars was only here to help and not cause harm. "I've binded the other to Shining Generals," Valeria told Alice. "Very good, Valeria." Alice nodded. She turned to Mars and chuckled. "Oh, how silly of me. Mars, meet Valeria Autumn." "Pleasure," Mars remarked. "Splendid." Gilder applauded as he approached them. "I appreciate the extra hands in this." Mars and Alice smiled and told him it was no problem. Valeria, on the other hand, felt herself twitch out of irritation. Why the hand puns, Valeria thought. "So I'll take these 3 Shining Generals and now," Gilder told Alice and Valeria. He turned to go with his squad to lead the captured Shining Generals away, but stopped. "Oh, and before I forget, perhaps you'd like to live at the Purple Orcus HQ?" Valeria and Alice looked at each other, then back at the Purple Orcus captain. "We'll pass," both women replied. Gilder on the outside was disappointed, but on the inside, he was relieved. "All right," he said before leaving with his squad. After they left, a spatial portal appeared and out came Courtney and Julius. "Hi there," Julius greeted. Mars was surprised by the appearance of the Wizard King, as was Alice. Valeria turned her attention to face Julius. The Wizard King, Julius Novachrono. Valeria thought, "I wonder what warranted you to come here, my friend." End of chapter 8. Link down to the comments if you want to read the rest of the story. I hope you'll enjoy. Goodbye.